I didn't know that there were intellectual arguments for the existence of God, or I didn't know that there was evidence for the resurrection outside of the Bible. I just thought we take all of it on faith. I think I was operating from the definition of faith that I think many atheists have, which is that you believe something even though there's no evidence for it, or even in spite of there being no evidence, or even there being evidence against it. You just buckle up and believe. And I think maybe I understood faith that way. But then I learned that biblically faith is more of an active trust, and that's based on evidence. And so I began to look into the evidence. And very early on in that journey, I discovered the cosmological argument. Something doesn't come from nothing. And that's I was stuck on that for a long time. No matter who I listened to or what I looked into, no explanation of how something could pop into existence out of nothing made sense to me. This just kind of pestered me and plagued me. And then when I heard the cosmological argument, which is really a scientific argument, that which begins to exist must have a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe must have a cause. And when I started to think about what this cause would look like, it would have to be a cause that was really powerful to be able to create something out of nothing. It would have to be personal because it would require making choices about how these things would work. It would have to be outside of space and time and matter because it caused all of those things to begin to exist at a certain point in time. And that really started to sound a whole lot like the God of the Hebrew Bible. And so that really laid a foundation for me to go a little bit further into that investigation. And then I started to look at arguments like the moral argument and the teleological argument. And when you put all these things together, what really struck me is that as a sort of a blind faith Christian, realizing that Christianity is actually built on evidence, it makes very specific historical claims, many of which have been verified by archaeology. When you just put it all together, it's really pointing in one direction. And what I was really surprised about was the mountain of evidence that it really seemed to me that you would have to willfully shut your eyes to in order to deny that there's at least a really good case for Christianity. If some kind of a God existed, he would want to reveal himself, at least in some way. We would have to look at all of the different ways people have understood him to do that.
I want to know, is there any evidence backing any one of them up as uniquely being true?